Judge dismisses Trump's sanctuary city lawsuit. What it means for immigration policy. A federal court just delivered a major blow to the Trump administration's immigration agenda, ruling that its lawsuit against Illinois, Chicago, and Cook County over sanctuary city policies is dead in the water. Here's where it gets controversial. The judge didn't just dismiss the case. She declared the entire legal attack invalid, claiming the Trump team had no legal right to break it in the first place. And this is the part most people miss. The ruling isn't just about politics. It's a direct challenge to the federal government's authority to force states and cities to comply with immigration enforcement. Let's break it down. U.S. District Judge Lindsey C. Jenkins, presiding over the Northern District of Illinois, slammed the Trump administration's argument that sanctuary policies, like Chicago's Welcoming City Ordinance and Illinois' Trust Act, hinder federal immigration efforts. She argued that these local laws don't actually interfere with how Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, operates or disrupt private contracts with federal agents. In fact, she went further, stating that demanding local police and officials assist with deportations would be unconstitutional. Why? Because it violates the 10th Amendment by letting the federal government commandeer state and local resources under the guise of intergovernmental cooperation. Think of it this way. If the federal government could force states to enforce its laws, where would that line be drawn? Could they pressure cities to handle tax collection or even school policies? The judge's warning is clear. That's a slippery slope. The lawsuit had targeted Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, and other local officials, accusing them of obstructing federal immigration enforcement. But Jenkins dismissed the case without prejudice, meaning the administration could theoretically try again. However, the legal hurdles just got much higher. Governor Pritzker, who's rumored to be eyeing a 2028 presidential run, called the ruling a win for the rule of law. But unlike the president, we follow the law and listen to the courts, he tweeted, framing the decision as a rebuke of Trump's heavy-handed tactics. Cook County's top prosecutor, Eileen O'Neill Burke, chimed in too, arguing that the Trump team's lawsuits are more about bullying local communities than safety. We need victims and witnesses to trust us, she said, emphasizing that fear of deportation could deter people from reporting crimes. But here's the twist. The White House isn't backing down. A spokesperson doubled down, claiming sanctuary cities like Chicago are making Americans less safe. The government has a duty to protect citizens from harm, Abigail Jackson said in a statement, linking the policies to the recent shooting of a Customs and Border Protection officer in New York. This raises a critical question. Are sanctuary policies really a public safety risk, or are they a necessary shield for marginalized communities? The Trump administration's lawyers argue the former, while critics counter that local law enforcement should focus on crime, not federal immigration battles. This isn't an isolated case. The Justice Department has launched similar lawsuits against New York City, Colorado, and Los Angeles, accusing them of obstructing immigration enforcement. In New York, the legal action came after a brutal attack on an off-duty Border Patrol agent, which the administration tied to sanctuary policies. Meanwhile, the Colorado and Los Angeles lawsuits claimed local laws discriminate against federal immigration priorities. Yet, as Judge Jenkins' ruling shows, these cases face steep legal challenges. The core issue? The federal government's power to compel state and local cooperation. And this is where opinions will clash. Should cities be allowed to set their own policies on immigration enforcement, or does that undermine national security? We'd love to hear your take. Do you think sanctuary cities protect communities or compromise safety? As the legal battles escalate, one thing is clear. The fight over sanctuary policies is far from over. With the 2028 presidential race on the horizon, Governor Pritzker's victory could become a rallying cry for Democratic leaders. But for now, the courts are sending a message. Federal overreach has limits. Chicago wins. Judge dismisses Trump lawsuit against sanctuary city policies. A major legal battle over immigration policies just took a decisive turn, and it's bound to fuel even more heated debate. On Friday, an Illinois federal judge dismissed a lawsuit brought by officials from the Trump administration that challenged Chicago's so-called sanctuary practices. Their aim? To overturn the city's restrictions on how local police work, or don't work, with federal immigration authorities. But that's just the surface. Here's where things start getting controversial. The lawsuit, initiated in February, accused Chicago's sanctuary laws of actively undermining federal attempts to enforce immigration rules. Specifically, federal officials argued these policies block local governments from sharing immigration information with agencies like Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and make it nearly impossible for federal agents to identify and detain individuals subject to removal proceedings. However, Judge Lindsey Jenkins, presiding over Illinois' Northern District, decided in favor of Chicago and other defendants, granting their request to throw the case out of court. This ruling is notable. It signals judicial support for local autonomy in how cities approach cooperation with federal immigration authorities. Chicago's mayor, Brandon Johnson, was quick to celebrate the decision, emphasizing that the city's public safety relies on police being able to prioritize the needs of local residents rather than enforcing federal immigration policies. This decision underscored a critical principle. Chicago's welcoming city ordinance is both lawful and protective of our community safety. We shouldn't, and legally we can't, be compelled to support what many see as the Trump administration's harsh and inhumane immigration policies, Johnson stated. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker echoed this sentiment, proudly posting, "Illinois just beat the Trump administration in federal court." The message was clear. The state's leadership sees the dismissal as a victory for local governance and for immigrant communities. Neither the U.S. Department of Justice nor the Department of Homeland Security responded immediately to requests for comment, leaving open questions about how federal agencies might adapt or whether they'll persist with similar lawsuits elsewhere. But here's what most people miss. The Trump administration didn't single out just Chicago. They've targeted other cities and states they believe are impeding federal immigration enforcement, including metropolises like Los Angeles, New York City, Denver, and Rochester. In fact, in May, federal officials also sued 4 different cities in New Jersey. For decades, Chicago has considered itself a sanctuary city, and its protections have only grown stronger over time, notably during President Trump's tenure starting in 2017. That year, the city's stance put it at odds even with some Illinois Republicans. Then Governor Bruce Rauner defied party expectations by signing enhanced statewide sanctuary protections into law, sparking intra-party conflicts and setting a national example. There's still no single legal definition for what a sanctuary policy or sanctuary city actually is, a point of endless debate. Generally, the term refers to local limitations on cooperation with ICE, particularly when it comes to detaining immigrants or sharing their information. ICE continues to be responsible for enforcing U.S. immigration laws nationwide, but federal officials often look to state and municipal governments for assistance, a partnership some localities are increasingly reluctant to provide. And this is the part that's truly up for debate. Should cities like Chicago have the freedom to shield their residents from broad federal enforcement actions, even if it means clashing with Washington? Or do these sanctuary policies cross a legal and ethical line by taking discretion out of the hands of federal agencies sworn to uphold immigration laws? What's your take? Are sanctuary policies a necessary form of local protection, or do they hinder national security and the rule of law? Jump into the comments and share where you stand. This case is far from closed, and your perspective could shape the conversation.